Welcome to Meet the Author, where you can join in on insightful conversations with best-selling and award-winning indie published authors. Your hosts today are Rob and Joan, who themselves are indie published authors, book publicists, and paranormal investigators with Tampa Bay Spirits, based in Tampa Bay, Florida. Thanks for dropping by. And now, on with the show.
Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Joan, and we're so glad that you're here. Whether you're watching the show live, which may I remind you, it is a pre-recorded show, so we won't be able to answer any of your comments or your questions. Though, if you do want to put them in our YouTube, we will make sure that the author, our guest tonight, will be sure to get them, which is, of course, Marjorie Doering, as you can see the pre-recorded visit scrolling along the bottom there.
Okay. And did we say hello to them?
No. Hello, Atlanta. Hi, Atlanta, WDJY 99.1. We're glad that you're in the audience. We're also glad to all of you that are listening to the audio only, that are listening to the audio podcast and not watching a recording of the vodcast.
Right. And if you want to get in touch with us, you can always shoot us an email at carternovels@aol.com. Okay, so I want to remind everybody every Thursday night, 9 o'clock Eastern Time here in the U.S. on WDJYFM.com, our shows air. Also, if you're listening in the Atlanta, Georgia area, 99.1 FM, you can actually listen to it on the radio. Saturday nights, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Episode Rewind is still plugging along every week. And then next Wednesday, we'll have another right here, 7 o'clock Eastern Time, Meet the Author Live. But that's every Wednesday. We just keep on going. Sometimes we're pre-recorded, but most of the time we're live on Wednesdays. Tonight we're traveling, so anyway.
But next Wednesday, you can comment and ask questions to your heart's content.
That's right. Okay, so
without further ado,
chat about?
No, let's bring Marjorie on.
All right, our tonight's guest is none other than author Marjorie Doering. Hello, Marjorie.
Hello.
How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
And I
did want to just point out one thing. My author's name that you'll find on my books is Marjorie Swift Doering. So just want to make that point. Okay.
So if they're looking you up on...
If people are looking for me, I don't want them looking for Marjorie Doering and not being able to find the books.
Right.
Definitely.
On Amazon, the search needs to be Marjorie Swift.
Marjorie Swift Doering. Yeah. Or I think you can get it Marjorie Doering too, but I just wanted to make that point though. So if they can't find it in one, looking at one name, look at the other.
Right.
You want me to fix it?
Sorry about that.
That's okay. We can fix that right now. Go ahead.
Okay.
We'll just change it.
And you can go ahead and chat.
Yeah, we can go ahead and chat. You and I can go ahead and chat.
Yeah, that's just the name that's on each book cover.
And, I look at that book cover so often. I should know that.
That's the way it goes. I understand.
Here we go. That didn't take long.
Well, perfect.
There we go. That'll clarify that.
Okay.
Well, it's been a while since we've talked to you on this end.
Usually you're in the audience.
Yeah.
Right.
How's everything going for you?
Oh, things are going well. I've told you about the big health issues with my husband right now, but things are going well, and we're just moving along one day at a time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. I'm sorry you're having to go through that.
So are we. But when you're our ages, that's what you come to expect.
That's life.
That's exactly.
The way it goes, unfortunately. None of us are immune to those things.
No.
Wish we were.
No. Well, frankly, I don't want to live forever, and neither does my husband. I mean, we've both lived a long time already, and we've had a great deal of luck as far as our health was concerned. And now it's just the gradual progression.
Yes. Yeah. And after a while, I have 4 autoimmune diseases, which I've been dealing with for a very long time. And after a while, you just really get tired of it because they're chronic, and there's really not a whole. There are things that you can do, but you can't ever have them healed. They're always with you.
Right.
You can minimize discomfort and that kind of thing, but.
Addressing the elephant in the room right here. This is surgery from skin cancer. So, unfortunately, it's
11th skin cancer.
11 in the last 2 years, yes.
Wow, that is so much. The bandage is a pretty good match color-wise.
Well, thank you very much. You should have seen the one that was on there right after. It was a pressure bandage, and it stuck out, so it looked like it was a chipmunk or something. I still sort of look like a chipmunk. I can't help that. I mean, I think that's normal.
You don't look anything like
well, you're looking good, Rob. I don't care. It doesn't matter. You look good.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you.
I think you look good, too. Well, let me bring up some of your books. I want to bring up the first one in this series. Marjorie Swift Doering, Deer Crossing. You want to tell us a little bit about that book, Marjorie?
Sure. It's an introduction to Ray right at the start. It's a real shaky introduction to the hero. He is in his own jail holding cell for having gotten in a bar fight the night before. Not a good start for the hero of a book. And he has a big chip on his shoulder, but very soon the reader understands what's going on, and he's not an unlikable man at all. And you see the progression with that too, where he's working his way out of it. His wife has had a very brief affair. They're going through a separation. He's got some problems in his background. He actually moved his family from where he was a cop in Chicago to the small town Widmer, and that's a fictional town, Widmer, Minnesota. I didn't want to get sued or anything with some of the things that happen there.
That's always good.
Or annoy people and scare them.
Right. So in any case, after his problems in Chicago, he moved to this small town thinking this will be better. And then she has this small affair, this short-term affair. So anyhow, he's in a mental mess. But he still loves his wife, and it proceeds from there. And of course, right off the bat, he wakes up in the holding cell and he's called to the office. We have to answer a phone call. Somebody's calling in the report of a dead woman in her home. Well, the woman is the wife of a very well-known executive in Minneapolis, and she has been murdered in their summer home. So the rest of the story is just Ray dealing with the murder and dealing with his personal situation, and it gets very exciting. I should have brought my other books with me so I would have the back things on the back page, the blurbs.
Oh, yeah. The blurb.
Yeah. But in any case, Ray ends up going to Minneapolis. There are parts, I think the last time I read about his confrontation with the bull, well, this was before he left for Minneapolis, where he gets, oh boy, blah, 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 blah. My My brain is going in 3 different directions at once. Okay, I will just say that he ends up going to Minneapolis and he's investigating the husband who is about to take over his father-in-law's business. So anyhow, there are people who have motives, and Ray sorts through it all. And at the very tail end, I kind of got in trouble with some readers who said, well, it ended on a cliffhanger. And it didn't really, because the original problem, solving who killed the wife, is definitely solved. But then at the very, very end, there's another death that leads right into the next book, and it picks up on Shadow Tag with that killing right there. That's the new investigation. And that again is in Minneapolis. So anyhow, it's this story, like I say, between Deer Crossing and Shadow Tag, one follows the other like boom, just no time between. The other books that follow are all like 3 years apart, 4 years apart. So it's Ray over his police career, basically, since he moved to Widmer.
So Shadow Tag, do you want to tell us a little bit about that, or do we want to move on to Targeted, or how do you want to?
Shadow Tag is one where, like I say, it picks up right on the murder at the end of the first book, at the end of Deer Tag. Oh boy,
Deer Crossing.
Like I say, my mind today. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That's
Just
okay.
having been sick yesterday, I think I'm a little goofy.
Foggy brain.
Okay, so we're talking about Shadow Tag. In this book, Ray and his partner, Dick Waverly, who he ends up being partners with throughout the rest of the series, they are investigating the murder of the dead woman's husband.
Okay.
So that's where that pickup came in right there.
That's interesting.
That's where the tag.
Yes,
that's where the tag comes in.
And he was found dead in the conference room of the company he was going to take over after he had just won the election. So he was going to take over his father-in-law's company, and he's found dead in the boardroom.
Very, very
with a bullet wound to his left temple. So it looks like he committed suicide. But why would he do that after he just got what he was after for 20 years?
Right.
And it proceeds from there. And people know, there's a whole lot of stonewalling. And he and Waverly get closer and closer to the answer, and they are almost killed by the person they come up with. So yeah, it's an exciting book.
Fast paced and moving quickly. It sounds great.
Right. It really is. And I'm not telling it well. I'm sorry. I'm doing a bad job of telling my own stories here.
No, you're doing a good job. So the next one is Targeted, but now this is like 3 or 4 years later in his.
This is later. Yes,
journey.
This is later.
That's a great cover.
Now I like this one too. So I'm trying to get my brains working right. In this story, they're called to a home where a wife has supposedly shot her husband in their bedroom. Ray gets there and finds out that their prime suspect is a woman that he knew back in Deer Crossing. She was a waitress at the Copper Kettle Cafe, and they struck up a friendship. I mean, Ray was in the dumps. His wife had this affair. She was understanding. She was a good shoulder to cry on. And unfortunately, she kind of developed a thing for Ray. It didn't go the other way, but she had a thing for Ray. But there definitely was a closeness, and he felt, like he owed her a debt of gratitude for getting him through that period. So anyhow, here he is faced with her being the prime suspect. and he's called on to, recuse himself from the case, get off the case. Your partner will handle it. You have nothing to do with it. You're too involved. Well, officially, he uninvolves himself, but not unofficially. And what happens from there is the person who actually did the killing does not take it well that he's interfering, and he ends up facing threats, and his children end up being abducted by this person, and he ends up having the person involved is giving him conditions. You do this, and you do this, or I'm going to kill your kids.
Wow.
And she gives him, he gets conditions that he can't possibly meet. It's like impossible. And it's following him through all these steps that he takes to actually protect his children and get them back. It's a very tense story.
Terrifying story.
Sounds like
Right.
Then you have to buy the book to see how it ends, you guys.
Oh yes. Oh yes, definitely. This is one that was one that you sit on the end of your seat reading that one.
Reading targeted. Because especially when there's children involved, I think we're all like, oh my gosh, save the children. Right. Web of Silence.
Okay, Web of Silence. Now I've
got to stop. Does that take place in Minneapolis too?
Yes, all of the rest of these stories take place in Minneapolis. Ray eventually moves to Minneapolis with his family.
Okay.
So he gets back together with his family. I just told you that.
We assume. Okay.
Web of Silence is, again, it's removed in time from the other stories. That's what makes them standalones. My goodness, I'm just really tongue-tied today. I'm sorry.
You're doing fine.
In any case, I got to pull myself together here.
This is now like another 4 years later.
Yeah, it's like another 4 years later. And there's another case. There's always another case, of course, a new case. A woman is found dead in an alley next to a man. Well, she's not dead. She's wounded. The man in the alley with her is wounded. Maybe we should just reschedule this for another day.
You're doing fine.
Oh my gosh.
You're doing fine.
She's found in an alley.
Yeah.
The man with her is dead. She is put into a coma in the hospital. She's injured badly and put into a medically induced coma. Yeah. So Ray is, looking for witnesses or whatever. He can't talk to the dead man. He can't talk to the woman in a coma. This is where the Web of Silence comes in. Eventually, they find the woman's 4-year-old son by himself in a theater, just left there. And he has a problem. He doesn't talk. The woman, his mother, she's mute because of an injury to her throat. She was in an attack and she can't speak even when she comes out of the coma. But of course, she can always do sign language and things like this. But the little boy has been affected by this and he doesn't really talk. So again, you can't talk to the little boy either. When they finally figure out who this woman is, they go back to her house and find another dead body, another woman.
Oh my goodness.
Jeez.
Yeah.
The mystery just keeps growing.
Yes, it just keeps building. It just keeps building. So anyhow, I don't know.
Note to self, never move to Minneapolis.
Right.
Not to Ray's neck of the woods anyway. Yeah.
Not to Ray's.
So anyhow, yeah. But it's an interesting thing. They have a number of suspects, and I think it will really surprise everybody how it turns out. I mean,
excellent.
that's the whole point, of course. That's one thing I will say with my reviews on all of these books. People will say, I never did figure out who it was until the very end. I never had a clue. Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's
Yes,
perfect.
I love that.
I do too.
Well, I think
We have
that's
to go
really
to a commercial, and we'll pick up where we left off.
Sure.
Okay, we'll be right back.
Be right back, folks. Don't go away.
Many secrets are hidden within the darkness of the jungle. Now comes part 4 in the Jaguar series by retired Hollywood scriptwriter George Dismukes. In this saga, Brandon, Andrea, and Naja, the Black Jaguar, go deep into the Mato Grosso jungle on a mission to rescue 2 kidnapped children. During their journey, they encounter many dangers, including Yanomami Indians, bent on revenge for the murder of one of their warriors.
Return of the Jaguar is book 4 in the Jaguar series, starting with 2 faces of the Jaguar, The Lost City, and the Jaguar's Quest. All 4 are available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other bookseller websites worldwide. Return of the Jaguar is a must-read.
The clock is ticking. Can Gracie uncover the truth?
Philip Pliant is the wealthy opportunist plastics dealer and CEO of Pliant Industries. He's also a master thief, creating a pervasive threat to the manufacturing infrastructure in the Caribbean islands markets. With the cartel as his stealth client, the naive city leaders have been seduced, enabling the production of more than 3-dimensional building materials.
The expected profits are monstrous.
Is the art group, now led by Gracie and the family heirs, strong enough to win against this predator?
Can JJ's cats act on the root cause analysis in time?
Will Gracie be able to squash Pliant and the cartels?
Gracie never considered their lives would hang in the balance. The clock is ticking. 5, 4, 3.
It's 1919, and Eric Laska returns from the war in Europe. 2 new enemies await him in the small, coal-mining town he calls home. One is a threat to his relationship with Rebecca, the love of his life. The other, a bloodthirsty beast, is stalking the mining town residents. The townspeople suspect Eric of one of the killings. An old man and Rebecca's 11-year-old sister have seen the beast, but only Eric believes their story. To protect the town and clear his name, he's forced to prove the werewolf exists. Available on Amazon. The Horror Within by Marjorie Swift Doering.
And we're back.
Here we are, for
and
sure.
we do want to say that actually Marjorie's last name is Doering, not Doering, but that's okay. As long as you can find it, we don't care. Actually, why don't we talk about that book, The Horror Within, and then you can do a reading from it before we finish up with the other books. We have other books we would like to tell you about, but I think it would be good to do this since we just now saw the commercial.
Okay, well, seeing as I'm getting all tongue-tied today for whatever reason, seems like a good idea. I can read.
Wow, there you go.
Okay, now what I'm going to read from The Horror Within actually starts in the middle of chapter 5, and it needs a little setup. This happens the night after 11-year-old Emily Ann Sokol sees the werewolf for the first time. And the next day she is scared to death. Nobody listens to her. Nobody believes what she said she saw. Her 13-year-old brother and she are heading off to school. And she says she's scared. And he says, okay, well, how about if I go... Would it make you feel better if I went and got the old rusty poker out of our shed that you can carry that along for protection? So anyhow, he does that. Now they're on their way to school, and I'll pick up kind of in the middle of that too. where they're at school and the teacher is not at all a nice person. You will see that yourself. Okay, so I'm picking up right in the middle of the middle. Sorry, Miss. Holding her breath, Emily watched over Christoph's shoulder. Sorry, Mr. Muldaur, Aaron said. Sorry? Do you think an apology makes up for your slovenly work? No, sir, Aaron said. Good, because it doesn't. You're not leaving today until you redo that assignment to my satisfaction. Aaron's name involuntarily slipped between Emily's lips. Aaron turned his head and looked at her before responding. Sir, I'm sorry, but I can't stay. I'll do the assignment over again at home tonight and bring it back in the morning. No, Mr. Sokol, you won't. There's no reason for me to think the work done there would be any improvement over this. He shoved the notebook into Aaron's chest. You'll do it here, and you'll do it now, and you'll do it right. With that, Muldaur rang his bell, waving the others out. We're done. Go home. Emily went to her brother. I'll wait for you, Aaron. No, he told her. Go home while it's still light out. But I'm scared. For Emily, it wasn't an easy admission. There's no need to be. Aaron walked her to the back of the room. Quit worrying, Em. It'll be okay. He grabbed her coat off its hook and helped her into it before wrapping the yellow muffler around her neck. Get your boots on. You know where we left the poker. Take it with you. I don't need it. He gave her a smile. You don't either. But if it makes you feel better, Aaron... He lowered his voice. Look, Em, the longer you keep arguing with me, the longer it's going to take for me to get home. Want me to miss supper? Mr. Sokol, Muldaur said, I suggest you get to work. Emily looked up at her brother. All right, Aaron. Hurry up, though, okay? Emily hoped against hope Aaron would catch up with her. That very slim possibility was all that kept her from running home. She forced herself to maintain a normal pace to improve the odds. Halfway home, there was still no sign of him, and the darkness under the forest canopy deepened. She gripped the rusted fireplace poker so tightly her fingers hurt. She detected movement from the corner of her eye. Emily wanted to run, but her feet refused to move. Searching her surroundings, she turned with the poker raised over her head. Nothing. Nothing but leaves rustling as they stubbornly clung to the branches of an ancient oak tree. You're just imagining things. Quit that. She said it aloud, hoping her voice would mask a new sound in the near distance. Not leaves this time, but breaking twigs and branches. Not the wind, certainly. Something solid. Something big. She looked for signs of movement, but saw only her own breath billowing in the cold air. Emily started moving again. A deer? Maybe a raccoon or something, she told herself, but it was a tough sell. Emily broke into song, her voice quiet, shaky. If she could just drown out the sound of those sticks breaking. She sang louder, then louder still. Try as she might, no amount of singing could conceal the large gray stone skittering past her from behind. Terrified, she couldn't turn around. Aaron? There was no response. At the sound of heavy footfalls, she began to run. Aaron! The sound of his name was no longer a question, but a desperate cry for help. Abject fear took over as Emily realized she was in a race she couldn't win. Less than a half a mile away, Aaron jogged down the path. He spewed words that would have earned a sudsy punishment from his mother had she heard them. We're referring to washing the mouth out with soap. You can go straight to hell, Muldaur, you damned lousy son of a bitch. The verbal barrage, even out of the teacher's earshot, felt therapeutic. He stopped and clamped a hand over the stitch in his side. Doubled over, Aaron called Emily's name again. If she hurried home like he told her to do, she'd already be there, safe and sound. He stood upright again, glad there had been no reply. Aaron shivered and pulled his collar higher on his neck. Em? Grateful there still was no response, Aaron began moving again when something caught his eye, something out of place. He squinted, trying to make it out. Several yards off the path, he saw a long snake-like shape lying curved between some trees. Not white like the snow around it, it stood out, although he couldn't determine what it was. A path through a handful of disturbed snowdrifts led him to it. Reaching a point where he could see the object more clearly, he recognized what he'd been looking at. He picked up his yellow muffler, the one he'd slipped around Emily's neck as she'd left school. For long moments, he found he couldn't breathe. Blood. so much blood on the scarf. "M," he screamed. "M, where are you?" And that is where I will stop.
Oh my gosh, that's so scary.
Yeesh.
But not
That's
bloody.
What a good brother and sister, though, right? They
Yes,
love each
yes.
other. I love that, the way you wrote that.
Yeah, they're very close.
You can feel it, you know?
That's exactly what the brother would be doing, having to leave late, having to stay there, cursing out his teacher and out loud, and
worried about his sister.
Yeah,
his baby
really,
sister.
really that.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yep, I need to read that book.
Good. I will ask you afterward for your address where I can send it.
Oh,
And I will
sure.
get it to you. I would love
Thank
to.
you. Yeah, I'm having trouble moving on from
yeah. Well, it's been a great show.
I want to read the book now.
Well, I will get it to you as soon as I can, believe me.
I know. It sounds so good, though. That's awesome. Plus, I love things like werewolves and
Do you?
things that go bumping.
Unicorns.
Oh, yeah. And unicorns. Yep.
Dragons.
Besides looking for ghosties, we love all kinds of cryptids and, all kinds of stuff.
Right.
We've never found any cryptids, found lots of entities, but no cryptids. I'm not sure I would want to meet one face to face, but
those are probably scarier than ghosts, I think, because they're physical. I mean,
oh, for real. I can remember we were investigating in a restaurant in Savannah, Georgia, where some very bad stuff had happened. And we were using a FLIR, which, can show heat and cold and all that kind of stuff. And so you can tell whether it's a living person or not. And a FLIR is a really good thing to have in old buildings because you can look and see if there are rats or raccoons or stuff like that in the walls. Because that actually scares me more than the ghost does. I don't want a rat come running over my feet.
Right.
Well, we left off. Let's see. We have time to talk about, I think, one book, right?
At least one.
We left off after Web of Silence with Remains.
Mm-hmm. And I went and I ran and got my book so I could read off the back.
Perfect.
As tongue-tied as I am today, yeah.
That's what blurbs are for.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. I will read this to you then just to keep it less gibberish. It's a case unlike any other. In a rundown old house, clear evidence of a murder exists in the absence of a body. A man was found, or not a man was found, a bloody rug. The rug is just completely saturated in blood. Whoever was there is definitely dead, but the body is missing. And this is where Ray comes in. Okay, we've got a bloody rug. Somebody's dead. Now, who lives in this house? Is it him? Before Detective Ray Schiller and his partner can expose the killer, it's paramount that they find and identify the victim. As the investigation gets underway, the discovery of devastating evidence makes it critical that they resolve the case without delay. Compelled by the urgency of the situation, they grudgingly accept the help of an up-and-coming psychic known for finding the remains of missing persons. I'm not even doing this well.
Yes, you are. I'm excited that you have a psychic in there.
In the midst of the investigation, Ray is dragged into a perplexing situation by a woman claiming the new detective he is mentoring, her fiancé, deceived, abandoned, and beat her. That's disturbing enough, but Detective Fielding insists that he has never seen her before. Don't you love that?
I do love that.
Yeah.
I love that a lot.
Yeah, so trying to stay focused on the murder case, Ray finds the psychic's revelations are impressive but increasingly troubling. The facts coming out of the investigation lead to conclusions not even she predicted. And
wow.
That's a good one too. Yeah, and I love that side plot where what is this woman doing? I've never seen her. I've never met her. I don't, yes, he beat me and he did this and he did that. And yeah, it gets very interesting.
He said, she said.
Yep. And in the meantime,
And
of course, Ray is working on this missing body, this murder case.
Yeah.
Oh.
I like the cover too, because you see the house in the distance and then you see all the blood on the word remains. It's really,
yeah,
really,
and
really
skeleton down below. Yep.
It's really, really good. Yeah. Before we go on to One Way Out, let me ask you something that every author is asked when they're on our show. Everybody always wants to know, are you a pantser or a plotter?
I am a pantser. I know when I go into a story, basically what the beginning, the middle, and the end are going to be like. And then it's just a matter of weaving my way through that. And of course, there are always changes. When you're a pantser, you don't always get what you started out thinking you were going to get. Everybody will tell you that too. But yes, I do not write outlines. I don't want to feel constricted by that. It's like, well, I said I was going to do this. I better follow the plan. No, it's like, this seems better. This feels better. This is a better fit. Change this, take that out, get rid of it.
Yeah. And you were just talking about some secondary characters that you really liked. And I think sometimes that happens too as authors, that we end up being really loving and involved with our secondary characters, which I don't know if it surprises you, but it always surprises me. Shouldn't I really like the protagonist the most? But that's because your characters are so real to you, right?
They are. They are definitely real to me. I think I told you in the last time I was on that I actually did my dedication to Ray Schiller in the last book. Because to me, yes, he felt that real. I wrote 7 books with Ray Schiller, and to me, he was as real as just about anybody, in my mind, at least. I mean, I know better, but yeah,
I know that you know better,
the
but
dedication. Yeah.
Well, the truth is that if you don't think that they're real, why would the reader think that they're real? Because you're not going to write it like they're real if you don't believe it.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. I mean, and you were talking about a reader not liking the way that you had ended something. And actually, if the reader is feeling the things that you want them to feel, even though they may not be happy with what they're feeling, I mean, I'm always thrilled when they get that, that they're sad or shocked or like, oh no, that's what you want, right? To feel. You want them to feel what you're feeling. Do you cry with your characters and laugh with them and all that kind of stuff?
Oh gosh, yes. Matter of fact, I'm about to come out with a sequel, as I told you, with the Horror Within. And I swear to you, it's the truth. It took me a week to write that first chapter because to me, it was emotionally devastating. It wasn't about the werewolf. It wasn't about somebody getting killed or whatever. It was about the relationship between 2 people and what you see going on at the end of this chapter. And it just broke my heart. And I wrote it in a way that was, I think, very, I don't know, very emotional.
Mm-hmm. And very real.
Very real to me, yes.
Yeah.
And I had a hard time putting it down into words. I was struggling with it because it was choking me up. And it took me an entire week.
I get it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something when we come back from commercial, something that just happened in the last book we wrote.
Okay.
Okay, so
to me.
stand by, everybody. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
an unforgettable mystery thriller that will transport you back to 17th century England. Introducing Dream of Courage, facing fear head-on, your passport to 17th century mystery, mayhem, and murder. Follow Robert and John Rushworth through Leeds' bustling Briggate district, where danger lurks in the shadows, embodied by the thief-taker Jacob Wilding. You will laugh, you will cry, and be in awe of the twists and turns. Its meticulous attention to character development, emotional nuance, and the unfolding of the story's layers promise a compelling and emotionally charged journey. The U.S. National Times said, "Modern writers usually don't know what it was like to live in the past, but Rushworth Brown does this with great skill." Uncover the secrets of Smythe, the enigmatic tavern keeper who sends Robert to the Haven, to the pirate Captain Girlington. Will he outwit danger in the nick of time?
Have you wanted to publish your story? Have you thought about self-publishing? Today is your day. 5-star Amazon review. Self-publish your ebook on Amazon for free in 2024. This ebook is available on Amazon by Becca L. Jones.
Paradise, my prison. Charlie Flint awakens from a deep sleep and finds himself alone on a tropical beach surrounded by a palm tree jungle and exotic animals. He cannot remember who he is or anything about his life. First, he must find food and build shelter and protect himself from hidden dangers. As his memory gradually returns, it reveals what a very flawed person he is. A man who made too many mistakes, made too many enemies. The implications of the truth are staggering. How did Charlie get there? And will he save himself? Paradise, My Prison is the riveting new suspense thriller from retired Hollywood scriptwriter George Dismukes. Paradise, My Prison by George Dismukes is available in jacketed hardcover, softcover, and all ebook formats worldwide.
And we're back.
Indeed.
Okay, so when we were writing our last book, A Chance of a Ghost, I was writing the antagonists. I was writing the protagonists and the ghosts, and Rob was writing the whole mystery and the antagonist part. And so then we'd write a chapter, and then we'd collaborate with each other on the chapters, right? And we had this one chapter, and I was reading it aloud to him, and I couldn't read it because I was crying so much. And then one of the readers found the part that I'd written extremely sad and said, I didn't want that to happen to that character. And I was thrilled because they felt what I felt, which that made me happy because, you want to convey that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you want to talk about the sequel to The Horror Within?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Again, is being a pantser, I wasn't planning on writing a sequel. And yet I had a lot of people saying, when is the sequel coming out? Are you doing a sequel? So I thought, well, okay, I guess I should do that. And it was really interesting because, of course, then your mind is set on a whole new story. And I was thinking, well, how am I going to do this? Knowing how the ending was in The Horror Within, how am I going to open up the new story? What is going to happen? And I ended up using characters I never expected I would have. The main character in the sequel is actually the teacher, this horrible other teacher, this Lawrence Moldauer replaced.
Oh.
And I mean, you never would have thought from reading the other book that she was ever going to show up as a main character in the sequel, but she does. And it works beautifully. I'm loving the story. She gets involved in a love-hate relationship with a newspaper reporter. in Dayton. The story opens in Dayton. So another murder has taken place. It's a friend of this teacher, Julianne Babcock. And there's a whole story about why she left the other town to begin with. I don't want to give too much away about that.
No spoilers.
Right.
Because people still need to read The Horror Within, so.
Right, exactly. And that was part of the trick of writing a sequel, because there are always people who are going to read the sequel first and then the original second. So you don't want to give away too much. You don't want to have spoilers. Now, how do you do that? You don't want to let on who the werewolf was. So you've got to drag out the whole story without saying who it was and creating a whole new mystery for the reader who's reading the sequel last or first, I mean. Yeah. So anyhow, that's what I'm in the process of doing now. And I think it's going, like I say, it's been going very well. I love the story. Anyway, Julianne Babcock ends up going back to Floodwood, which actually was a real mining town in that era. It doesn't exist anymore. There's a place called New Floodwood across the river from where the old one existed. But anyhow, the story takes place in Floodwood. It starts out in Dayton, then it moves to Floodwood, and she only went back to Floodwood because she got a letter from a neighbor, an old neighbor, saying that her father is ill and I can't take care of him anymore. I would like to, but there's not enough that I can do. So, the decision is yours. They left on bad terms, she and her father, who is a reverend. So she decides, okay, she has to go back and take care of him. And the werewolf turns up back in Floodwood. He's been gone for 4 years, same length of time she has. But the werewolf starts killing again in Floodwood. And then she goes back to Dayton, and suddenly somebody is killed in Dayton again. And Nate Nate, the journalist, is in Floodwood trying to get this whole story. So she's in Dayton, he's in Floodwood, and he's trying to figure out what's happening. And that's where all the conflict comes in. He ends up going back to Dayton because complicated story.
Well, that's good, though. People like complicated stories.
Yeah.
Well, it is complicated. But yeah, they start out in Dayton together. She goes to Floodwood. He follows practically on her heels because he's gotten information from somebody else that this is where all these killings started happening that were supposedly animal attacks in a certain area around Dayton. There have been animal attacks here and there, now and then, some 100 miles this way, some 80 miles that way, animal attacks. And he's going, it's something more than that. So he's on the tail of whatever the real reason is. So anyhow, that's why he ends up going to Floodwood, following on her tail, not to follow her, but because that's where the clues lead him. And it's going to be exciting. At the end, there's another mystery too. Someone in Floodwood, I can tell you this much, in the first book, somebody was killed because they were mistaken for being the werewolf. And then they found out that the man was innocent, and the whole town is keeping that secret. And this is what Nate is trying to discover. So it's really difficult getting to the end of the book without saying who this person is, because you don't want to put a spoiler into the first story.
You were good, I think.
No, right, and that's been really tricky. Yeah. And it's taken me a lot longer to write this book than I anticipated. Like I say, things have been happening at home and whatnot too. but just trying to figure out, how do I do this credibly?
Yes. So it makes
so that's
sense.
what I'm dealing with.
Let me
But
tell
it's
you how
getting
to
very
get
close to the end.
Good. Let me tell you how to get in touch with Marjorie. You can find her on Facebook at marjorie.doering. So that's MARJORIE.DOERING. And as you know, if you're looking up her books on Amazon, you want to look it up under Marjorie Swift Doering. Okay, and if you would like to get in touch with her, her email, I just put it up. Her email is marjoriedoering99@gmail.com. You're not the only one who's foggy brained. MARJORIEDOERING99@gmail.com. So that's
I
how
think
you
I'm just contagious, Joan.
no, I think that I'm like that. You watch the show enough to know I'm always like this a little bit. Okay. Well, all of that sounds fascinating and amazing. And I did want to say that we talked about Remains, but after Remains, there are 2 other books
Yes.
in this series, One Way Out and Collision Course. And so for their best read, should they start at the beginning with Deer Crossing and follow through? Or do you feel like each one of those books is standalone?
Each of them can be a standalone, but it's always more fun if you start at the beginning, because you get to see the progression of the character and how he's grown and how he's changed. And so I would recommend reading them from the beginning, but if you don't, that's perfectly all right. I think I've done a very competent job of doing backstory in just the right amount, without flooding everybody with, oh my God, okay. And then this happened and no. So I think you pretty much jump into each story with an understanding where it's going from there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they can do it as a readable.
That's what you're talking about with the sequel to the Horror Within 2, the sequel is just that, how to give them enough information from the previous book and without huge spoilers, because people will, if it's the new book and it's their first book of yours they've ever read, they're going to buy that book and read that book, and then they're going to want to go back and see what happened before. And so I understand what you're saying. I think it's easier with a murder mystery than it's going to be with this whole Horror Within. And that's much more complicated to deal with than just a murder mystery.
It is. I think it is.
Yeah. I do.
At
it's
least
really
it was
cool
for me.
that you use a psychic in one of the books. That's awesome. Because psychics do help detectives too.
Yes, they do. They are relied on by some departments.
They are. And some won't touch them with a 10-foot pole. But
I think on your new book, maybe at the beginning, you should have a cautionary statement like, caution, this is not a prequel. This is a sequel, right?
Right.
Well, I think the Horror Within 2, the sequel being on the cover is maybe enough.
Should give it away.
Yes, I mean, it's fair enough warning. This is not the first book.
There you go.
Warning,
this is
danger.
not the original. Right.
Believe it or not, our hour is just about up. Can you believe it?
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah. Didn't that go by fast?
55 of it was me of not talking clearly.
No, that's not right.
So on the sequel, about when, I know you're undergoing some difficulties at the moment, but do you have a projected time that you're wanting to get this published?
I would like to do it within the next. I would like to do it within the next month or month and a half.
Wonderful.
I mean, with all the formatting and all the rest, it's really close.
You got to get your cover.
Try to get it done. Right.
Yeah. Have you already had the cover made or no?
No, I don't have the cover made yet, but like I say, it's basically the same cover as before with one addition, which is major. On the right-hand side, it's going to be a picture of the werewolf's silhouette.
Profile.
Like the one arm and the claw and the torso, just on the edge of the cover. And then at the bottom, it will say it's back. So I know exactly what I want.
Historically, there's so many incidences of people that saw werewolves and had things happening in villages in Europe. I've read about it. It's creepy to think about, but kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
There have been sightings of what they call dogmen, which is basically the same thing, but like in Springer, Wisconsin.
Yes, here in the States they do, and I think in the South too, in parts of Alabama and Arkansas, I think dogmen have been seen.
That's
and then
really scary.
Skinwalkers. There's skinwalkers, which are sort of like werewolves. They're shapeshifters that, evil people that can shift into animal shapes.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I know you're coming off of an illness, and thank you for hanging in there. You did a great job. And, all your books are really awesome and worth exploring.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
So we're going to move you over to the side now.
Okay.
Hang on. Yeah.
Do that again.
Wait for us till the end of the show.
Stay there until we come back to you. Want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Remind everybody Thursday nights, 9 o'clock Eastern Time, U.S., WDJYFM.com. And if you're listening on the radio in Atlanta area, 99.1 FM. You can hear our show there. Saturdays, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time in the U.S., episode Rewind, right here where you're watching now. And Wednesdays, every Wednesday, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, Meet the Author Live. We will be here. And I guess, is there anything else you've got?
No, I do not.
All right, then. Until next time.
That's all, folks.
See ya.
Live every Wednesday, your Voice of Indie hosts Beam Weeks and Stephen Gees welcome authors, musicians, publishing industry pros, artists, and assorted creative guests for an exciting interactive hour. Call in during the show or post questions and comments on Twitter for responses in real time. Meet your favorite indie creators, learn inside tips, network, and promote your work. The link for each week's show is pinned on Twitter atop @VoiceOfIndie. And you can receive the link every Wednesday morning in your inbox by subscribing to our newsletter at freshinkgroup.com. Check out Voice of Indie every Wednesday on Blog Talk Radio and catch hundreds of episodes archived everywhere from our websites to our YouTube channel and Spotify.
Thank you for joining us here on Meet the Author. Make sure you stay up to date with our show by clicking like, follow, and share. And you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and more. See you next time on WLFE-